Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to a Happy Home series. Today is the 5th of September, 2020, and we are wrapping up our discussion that we started last week on intentionally grooming our boys to become real men. Is it a need of the hour? Thank you for the feedback. It's been positive, and we are glad that we're able to come to you with what we have. The Happy Healthy Home series is about promoting child and family development. And so on the last Saturday of every month, we bring you one discussion or the other concerning child and family development. You can find all our previous recordings at the YouTube channel, All for Jesus. And everything is there. It's a free meeting. And we hope that you'll be blessed today as well. Let's kindly share in a word of prayer as we begin. I'd like to invite Reverend Mrs. Akoko, who is the Metro Director, Ghana Education Service, Secondary Takrady Metropolitan, gracing our discussion today. Mrs. Akoko, if you can share in a word of prayer with us as we begin, please.
Okay. Thank you. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Shall we pray? Okay. Our Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to you for today. We bless you for the gift of life. Thank you for all that you have done in our lives and continue to do in our various roles in society, at home, at church, and wherever you have placed us. We commit this meeting into your hands. We thank you for direction. We thank you for grace, wisdom, knowledge, understanding. As we go through these discussions and these deliberations, lead us, Spirit of God, and let your purposes prevail in everything that we do. Thank you for our speakers. Thank you for participants. Thank you for everyone who's here. Have your way, and at the end of it all, we shall be very careful to give you thanks. We bless you for answered prayer. In Jesus' name we've prayed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to recognize the other members of the Happy Healthy Home team. If you are here, can you mute and say hello? Eleonora, I see you there.
Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining in. Happy to have you, and I'm sure we are going to enjoy another session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So without wasting my time, I'd like to introduce our speakers once again, and then we take a recap of last week's meeting for the sake of those who join us for the first time today. And then we hit the road running. So our speakers for today, we have Mrs. Ethel Ajalolo Mafo, and then Dr. John Ofori Atram. Mrs. Ethel Ajalolo Mafo is a CIMG award-winning social entrepreneur, an advocate for raising boys' rights to discover their divine purpose, to lead with integrity, and to make life safer for future women and children. She is a wife, mother of 3 daughters. That's interesting. And the founder of Junior Shapers Africa, Salon Cuties, and All Moms in Leadership. Ethel is a trailblazer and a change maker who is offering timely solutions and mentoring avenues for young boys, mothers, and girls in our society via human capacity development, social interventions, and SDG initiatives. Mrs. Marfo, we're happy to have you again today. Warmly welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here again.
Awesome. Then we have Dr. John Ofori Atram. Born and raised in Cape Coast, he attended St. Augustine's College in Cape Coast for his high school education. He obtained his BA degree from the University of Cape Coast. He did a Master of Education degree in Counseling Psychology at Cambridge College in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the USA. He studied for his PhD in Human Services with a specialization in Counseling Studies at the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences in Capella University in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the USA. Dr. Trump is a licensed mental health counselor with the state of Massachusetts, USA, having worked as a clinical psychologist in 2 community counseling clinics for 10 years in the US. He has written several articles in counseling and psychotherapy. And last week, he shared his book with us about his book, Too Scared of Tomorrow. The book is Too Scared of Tomorrow. You can find it on Amazon. And it's a clinical book that addresses fear as the basis of most psychological issues. He holds membership with various professional bodies, including American Psychological Association and Ghana Psychological Council. Presently, he's a lecturer and a counselor at the Department of Guidance and Counseling, University of Cape Coast. He's married with 3 children. Mr. Trump, we're happy to have you. You're muted, please. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
Yes, and a nice part of it is that speakers are they're not charging anything to speak to us. Things that ordinarily will cost an arm and a leg. I'd like to share with you before we kick, so that you'll be aware that there will be, this is from Junior Shippers Africa. Yes, this is Mrs. Ethel Marfo's event. These are her events. This one starts from tomorrow, 6 September to 22nd November 2020. And every Sunday evening, she'll be hosting your boys if you're interested to, groom them. They'll be learning how to cook, to clean, to stitch, to sell, to brand themselves personally, and other stuff. So if you're interested, you can call her on 0244-605-206. Okay, so we need to talk about this before we continue. And then next year, God willing, she'll be having the Boys to Men Voyage, where boys 7 to 17-year-old will be admitted to learn about etiquette and some other stuff. Later have a boot camp at the end of the year. Hopefully, coronavirus will be a thing of the past. And so once again, I'd like to welcome all of us. And I'll do a quick recap. Actually, I don't intend to do a very long recap because we can summarize most of the things we had in the 3 points that most of you saw on the WhatsApp that we sent. That's 1, toxic masculinity is as a result of the physical absence and emotional unavailability of fathers and father figures for that matter. Then we also learned that fear is a basis for most psychological issues, and so it's better not to raise our boys in fear. And I remember Dr. Trump saying that we should allow them to engage in competitions, healthy competitions, but we shouldn't also do it. And I think that it comes with not forcing down our expectations down their throats. And then we also talked about the fact that we need to raise them to be real men by fostering the ability to be in touch with their emotions and to do away with some of the toxic aspects of our parenting. And Macheta will tell us some more where we say Beme soon. And so we don't encourage our boys to be emotional. And you need to be aware of your emotions. Even to have a very good relationship with God, you need to be aware of your emotions, to understand and respect, especially women. You need to be in touch with your emotions to be an effective leader. And these were the definitions for the real man for the purpose of our discussion, so that the real man is humble, full of integrity, is not afraid to be vulnerable, not afraid to call for help. And we said that real men also respect themselves. And I remember Auntie Ethel saying that I asked about single mothers and children in orphans, and the issue of fostering came up. That every man must feel committed to boys that come into his life, whether as a teacher in school, whether in church, whether at work, wherever. Every boy should be seen as one that they can groom to become a real man. And the striking bit of that discussion was that every time I asked, how do parents do it? I got the answer, parents need to model for their children to see. In fact, the whole week, I've been very burdened because it is a fact that in child development, before you do anything for any child, you, the adult, must make sure that you've got what it takes. You can't give what you don't have. And so it behoves on our fathers and our brothers and our uncles and our grandparents to actually look within themselves and do a deep introspection and find out whether they have these qualities and whether they can really pass it on, or whether they are really passing it on. Because I feel that the onus is actually on them and not on the children. In any case, our discussions will continue. We'll talk about how to intentionally groom our girls also to become virtuous women, because that is important. Then finally in our discussion, we asked a question that was very deep and that related to all children actually, that when do we start grooming our girls and our boys? That question was actually boys, but then Dr. Trump took us deeper to the psychological developmental stages of all children. And I think it starts right from conception. So by the time the baby lands on your lap, the grooming begins. And so he walked us through to a point, and we'll allow him to briefly take us through so that we can continue talking about how to groom our boys. We also discussed the issue of boys being left out of our campaign for development. We have about it, the girl child, it's all about the girl child. And so Reverend Mrs. Akwoku, who is the Metro Director, Ghana Education Service for the Sekendita Kwadi Metropolis, actually shared a view and said that, okay, the situation is changing now, and that indeed boys were being left behind. And so it's exciting to know today she will also share with us, she have a question for her, she'll make a contribution, and we'll also be having Dr. Linda Vanotu. She used to be the Regional Director, Ghana Health Service, Western Region. Then she went on to be the Regional Director, Greater Accra Region, Ghana Health Service. And she's retired now. She's a strong boys development advocate. And so she'll also be on to share her views on one or two issues. And so I'd like you to stay with us to the end. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. If you have any contribution, they are welcome. And sorry, last week we couldn't take all the comments and the questions. So Dr. Trump, I'd like you to, okay, before Dr. Trump comes on, I think I want to ask Auntie Ethel to talk about, there's somebody asked a question at the last meeting, and she said that she she has a daughter and sons, I think, and whenever she's not in the house, she lets the girl be in charge, and her son has been complaining. Unfortunately, she didn't tell us the ages. So the son has been complaining, and so the son has been complaining because he wants also to take charge. So she wanted to know what impact that will have on the son, and how should she go about it. So, Angela, if you can weigh in on that issue, and then we'll go and talk about the psychological developmental stages of children generally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good evening once again to your honorable participants. It's a pleasure meeting you all. Yes. So for parents, I think that it behoves on us to give our girls and boys equal opportunities at home. So if this woman has a daughter and a son, and the son is complaining that he's not also given leadership roles, it means that there's something lacking. It means that probably the woman is always entrusting the girl with more responsibility. And she should be happy that the boy wants something to do. You understand? That is the mistake that some of our parents make. They tend to pile responsibilities on the girls, and so it makes girls more responsible, and more girls develop more excellent work ethic, and so when boys grow up, there's a deficit when it comes to showing responsibility at home. That's where you see that in some homes, I'm getting feedback. In some homes, a woman or a wife is doing all the work at home, and the man looks unperturbed. It's not his fault. He was not pushed or encouraged by the mother to learn how to support. And so he sees that it's a woman's job or it's a woman's role to kind of bathe the kids, feed them, do homework. He may want to do something, but he wasn't trained that way to offer help. So if this boy is asking to help, it's a good thing. She should entrust him with responsibility. The only thing we don't know right now is the age of the boy, because if the boy is younger than the girl, definitely the boy cannot be asked to supervise the girl. She's older, and boys must be groomed and oriented to appreciate leadership, so that when he goes into an institution where he meets a female leader, he will respect that female leader as his boss. You understand? So if the boy is younger, all she can do is entrust him also with responsibilities. Kweku, you also take charge of the sitting room. I want you to make sure that the sitting room is always clean. Give him something to do that he can report to you. And as much as possible, don't also play stereotypes in the house where Amma is always cooking and Kojo is always sweeping. Interchange. Give them a varied exposure. Let Kojo also help in the kitchen. Let Amma do something else. Don't see roles as masculine and feminine. Allow them to learn everything, so that they'll be well-rounded adults. So I just encourage my mom to share the roles equally, and according to the age. Maybe the boy may be younger and craving for responsibility, but he may not be ready for such assignments. Explain to him that when he grows, you add on, but give him something to do that will make him responsible in the house. Yeah.
Wow. So we contribute to the stereotype mindsets right in our homes.
Yeah.
When we designate roles,
Yes.
males and females. Thank you very much for clearing that out of the way. Dr. Trump, you were telling us
Yes.
last week about the grooming of children generally, both boys and girls, what they learn at the various stages by Eric Erickson.
Yeah.
Would you like to kindly briefly
Yes.
go over those stages? You have the floor.
Okay. We got to stage 3, but I would like to start all over again very quickly.
Yes,
You see,
please.
the psychosocial developmental stages start right from birth. And birth includes doing preparation for the birth of the child, so that by the time the child is born, social and psychological structures have been put in place for this child to thrive. So from birth to 18 months, it is a time for attachment and bonding between mom and child. It is this time that the mom gives warmth, care, love, sometimes through fondling, breastfeeding, and other activities that makes the child very warm, feel very warm. If this is done appropriately, the mother had introduced into the child's psychology trust. If it is not done appropriately, the child will gain mistrust. And the meaning of this is that the child is going to grow with whatever it gained from childhood. So if you introduce trust to this child, he's going to live with trust. He's going to trust the world he's living in. And this will give him more self-confidence and a good self-esteem. But if you introduce mistrust through the way you nurture the child, then the child is not going to trust the world. He'll carry mistrust along the way. And according to psychologists, this mistrust will carry on in such a way that the child owes it. He owes it. He has a debt of trying to pay to get trust. And he will show certain characteristics in his life that will mean that he does not trust the world that he's living in. He's very cautious at everything that he does. He feels vulnerable. He is very timid. And sometimes he finds a defense mechanism to cover all these things up. And he becomes arrogant, very proud, and easily angered. The second stage is from 18 months to 3 years. At this time, the child is trained how to use the potty. We call it the potty training time. And then the child is trained to maintain his self. So that is also the self-maintenance time from 18 months to 3 years. If the child is able to gain this, he will be autonomous in his life. Otherwise, you will gain shame and doubt. The third stage is from the age of 3 years to 5 years. This is the period for academic focus, when the child goes to school to learn maths, reading. And it is also the time for the child to start making friends, so that when he goes to school, his classmates become his friends. And then he will know who to bond with and who to interact with. If he is able to do this successfully, the child will gain initiative and drive. But if he's not, he will live with a kind of guilt and shame. The fourth stage is from age 5 to 13 years. That is when parents should teach their children social competence. They should train them to become social competent, in the sense that they will be able to interact with their environment very successfully, so that there will be no shame. And this is the time too that the child will form a network of friends. He will create a friendship network. If this is done appropriately, the child gains industry. He becomes very industrial. Otherwise, he will be inferior. He will feel inferior. That is when inferiority complex comes in. The next stage is from age 13 to 21 years. That is. Hello? Hello? Hello, are you hearing me?
Dr. Chang, please continue.
Hey.
Yes, please. We are with you.
Yeah. The next stage is this. It is between the ages of 13 to 21 years. This is the stage that the child will know the meaning of loyalty amidst his friends. For example, you meet young people between the ages of 13 and 21, and they begin to know which of them is loyal and who is to be trusted. So that when they are at a meeting and one of them is not there, they could say that he will come by all means, or this guy is lazy and he will not come. So that is the time of formation of loyalty and friendship. If this is done, the child gains ego identity. He creates an identity for himself, and the identity will be made up of trustworthiness, and it will also be made up of loyalty. He will be trusted by his friends, and he will be loyal in society. Otherwise, his role will be confused. He would not know what role he is playing in society, because in the long run, he is not to be trusted. So he confuses his role in society. From age 21 to 39 years, that is the time for the child to fall in love. This is the time for the child to fall in love. And if he's able to do this successfully, he gains intimacy. Intimacy based on truth and respect. Truth and respect for the other person. Otherwise, he will be isolated among his peers. He'll be isolated. I have people who come to me and they ask me, why is it that at this age I don't have a wife or I don't have a girlfriend? So it is isolation because the person did not fall, was not properly experienced with the psychosocial developmental stages at this point. That is age 21 to 39. The person would have experienced from stage 1 to stage 6 to know how to fall in love. It doesn't come just by itself. You would know how to fall in love if you have social competence, if you are loyal, if you have faced academic work, if you have been trained with potty and you have self-maintenance, if you have been held by your mother and giving you attachment and bonding. This is the stage for you to put all into practice. That is, you fall in love, and through that, you gain intimacy. If you do not gain it, you fall into isolation. You remember, when I started this, I said that at every stage, if you miss any experience, any psychological experience at any stage, you owe it. You have to see a professional to help you attain it. If you don't attain it, you can continue living, but you get to a point that you realize that you have lost a certain experience in your life and that you have to go back for it. From age 40 to 65 years, that is the time of nurturing children, having and nurturing children. This is the time you have gained enough experience to be able to have your own children and to nurture them, and also to nurture other children. If you are able to do this, you will gain what we call generativity. Generativity. If not, you will be stagnant in life. At this stage, if you are not able to nurture or have children, you will be stagnant in life. You cannot go forward psychologically. And then, if you are 65 years and older, this is the time that you will impart wisdom to others. You impart wisdom and you mentor others. This is the time that you have enough wisdom to impart it to other people. You have enough mentoring to mentor other people. If you are able to do this, then you gain what we call ego integrity. Ego integrity. If not, you will be left in desperation. You will face despair in life, and you will live with this until you die. So these are the 8 psychosocial developmental stages of mankind.
Thank you, Dr. Trump. I'd like you to go over the ages again, from birth to 1.5. What they learn is trust.
18 months.
Yes, it's trust.
Yes, what they learn is trust versus mistrust.
And then from 18 months to 3
From
years.
18 months to
3 years,
3
they
years,
learn
that is potty
initiative.
training.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No. In 3 years, 18 months to 3 years, they learn potty training. That
Okay.
is when the person is taught by parents to potty.
Yes,
You
right. I
see,
got that.
somebody at age 15, there are some people at age 15 and they are bedwetting. When they are bedwetting, the meaning of that is that they didn't go through proper potty training.
Okay. Then from 3 years to 6 years,
Yeah.
they
So
learn social
3
competence.
years to 3 years to 5 years.
Oh, sorry.
3
What did they
years
learn?
to 5 years is academic focus. That is the time
Okay.
for academic focus.
All right.
They go to school and learn maths, reading, and then at the same time, this is the period they start making friends.
Sure.
Now they are exposed to other children of their age.
We got
So
that.
that is the time they start making friends.
Okay. And then the
And
social
if they are
competence
able to
starts.
do that, they have the social competence starts from age 5 to 13 years.
Okay.
You see, like social competence, excuse me to say, you see somebody and then in public he's belching. He eats and then he starts to belch in public. It means he's socially incompetent.
Okay.
Or among a crowd and he's farting. He has no social competence. He's talking over another person who is talking. He lacks social competence. So it is important that parents teach their children social competence at age 5 to 13 years. And then
Okay.
if you are able to be socially competent, you will be able to form a friendship network. A friendship network. Because if you are not socially competent, nobody would like to be your friend. You see?
All right,
And
Dr. Trump.
yes, please.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you. I want to find out what age do they have identity crisis? Because it drives us into the next question.
The identity crisis is between the ages of 13 to 21 years. Between the age of 13 to 21 years.
Okay, we
You
know
see,
that.
because that is where your value.
Sorry, continue.
That is when your values, your morals, and your ethical makeup starts. You see, so that is the time you are forming an identity, whether you are a righteous person or you are a criminal,
Wow.
whether you are a straightforward person, whether you are a liar, or a truthful person. Where this is the time for them to be able to create a friendship network. You see?
Wow. So
Because your
during that
loyalty
age,
will lead you to
sorry, continue.
that. During that age, they create ego identity.
Okay.
Ego identity. On the flip side of it, it is ego confusion, role confusion.
Okay, Dr. Trump.
They don't
So
fit in anywhere.
this point is very exciting. I want us to go a little bit deeper. What
Dwell a
are
little bit
some
on
of
it. Yeah.
yes? What are some of the
Yeah.
things that we do or the experience that can lead to ego confusion? And what kind of things should we do to help them fight their identity?
Yes. You see, identity creation belongs to the morality of man. Identity creation. Your identity is
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we lost Dr. Trump there. Anteto, are you there?
what
Yes,
leads you into the world.
Okay. Sorry, Dr. Trump, can you come again on that? Sorry, kindly unmute yourself.
Okay, all right. You see, identity formation is what makes a person, a real person. Person with morals, person who carry out values, a person whose way of life and belief system are intact. So that is the identity. So that when the person is going, you can be identified as, oh, this is Dr. Jesse. And this Dr. Jesse is a truthful person. She's a loyal person. She's somebody we can give a responsibility to. You see, so that is the stage that you have to exhibit an experience that shows that you are ready to carry a leadership role. You have an identity. People are proud of you for your identity, your values system, and your belief system, and so on and so forth. You see, there are so many people in this world who lack all these things, and their identity is negative, you see. And what comes out of a negative identity is role confusion. They don't fit in at any stage of their lives. Anywhere they go, like for example, when we go to any industry, like teaching, and then everybody is pointing their hands at teachers, and then they point a hand at a particular teacher and say, this is not a good teacher. See? Or a doctor, this is not a good doctor. Anything you are doing in this world, people look at it and say, you are confused with your role. Your identity is not correct. You don't have a better identity. So this is the stage that we are asking parents to train their children values that will bring about a better ego identity.
Wow. And I'll pick it from there. In what ways can we help our boys find their identity?
Yes, so I agree 100% with Dr. Trump. I've learned so much from him today too. The values. As a parent, let's be just true to ourselves. What values are you exhibiting yourself at home? This is where it comes from. Like I said last week, children are born with nothing in they didn't come with any habits. They didn't come with any attitude or any identity. You are the one, you are their first parent. You are the one, you are their first teacher, sorry. You are the one they're looking up to. So it's what you model, that's what they pick up. So we parents must invest in creating some identity ourselves that our children can look up to and also emulate. Parents must also understand that everybody has their uniqueness. So in helping your child to find his identity, know that God has a purpose for every child. Don't force things down your child's throat. You can guide your child to find his identity, but at the same time, know that we are all unique. So don't force your child to be a mini you. God didn't create your child as a mini you. He's not a mini of you. Your child, if he's crazy, and he came into this world for a purpose. And so your purpose or your mission as a parent is to guide him, discover who he is, discover his purpose on earth, you know. So one thing parents can do is to engage them in conversations and give them biblical examples that show values of great men in the Bible. Encourage him to also find his identity in God. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child the way he should go, so that when he grows, he will not depart from it. He should find his identity in Christ. If you're a Muslim, yes, use the teachings of Allah to help your son find who he is, you know. And also encourage your child to discover himself. Don't force things down his throat. If your child is seen to be liking music, he's always playing the drums, don't play down on it. He's forming his identity, he's finding his purpose. You can encourage him to learn other things in addition to that, but don't try to belittle anything that he loves, because when you do that, it affects other things. It affects his academics. If a child is not allowed to express himself express his talent, express his gifts, really, he's not happy, and so it affects him academically as well. At least a few examples we have at JSA, I can say that when we encourage parents to allow their sons to exhibit what they have inside. There was a mother who brought her son to a program, and I asked her what her problem was, and she said, "Oh, he's too playful. He's too playful. Every time he's fixing something around the house, he'll destroy things around the house and refix it. It really gets to my last nerve." And I'm like, "Mommy, this boy is going to be an electrical engineer, or he's going to go into robotics or something. This is how he starts, so you have to be patient." So we gave the boy an opportunity to express his gifts. Every time he came for a meeting, he felt so good about it, because it was like we respected that skill that he had. And naturally he started warming up, and he was happy at school. He was no more how do I say it, bitter. He was doing better academically. So the mother saw the sense in allowing him to express himself through his gifts and talents. So parents, I know it's difficult when your child is discovering himself. It's quite a mess. The whole house is messy, or he'll be all over the place. But we have to be patient. Finding your identity is not easy. Even we as adults, some of us are still finding our identity, because some of us didn't get those foundations that Dr. Akram is talking about. So some of us are still grappling with it. We're still finding it. What more a child, so patience in helping our children to find their identity.
So
Affirm him.
we are supposed to be guiding them, isn't it?
Yes. And
Okay.
affirm him. Affirm him. The little things they do, let him know that he did a good job. He did great. If he didn't do well, to find a nice way to go about it. But don't talk in such a way that you inhibit him, So affirm your child with positive words. Let him know that he's great. Let him know that he's destined for greatness, and he'll be great.
Okay. I want you to talk about this other issue in our Ghanaian parenting. Okay. What are some of the things that we do that not help them to find their identity and they end up being insecure? I know that one of the things that we don't do as parents is we don't apologize to our children. So they don't learn
Yes,
to
I said this
apologize
last week.
to others. Can you mention other things that, yes, we are doing in our parenting as a mother? And I'll let Dr. Tram also weigh in as a father. What are some of the toxic things that we are doing in our parenting? And I want to also say that last week we said that these things are transmitted generationally. So some of the things that you find about your own self, you may have learned it from your parents learned it from their grandparents, unless of course we come to ourselves and we decide that no, this thing that is running through my family is not healthy, like abuse, like physical abuse, okay, like sexual abuse. All these things, they run in homes and it's passed on from one generation to another. So what are some of the things that mothers, and Chetal, this is to you, mothers are doing that is helping their children or is making them insecure? Let me put it that way.
So if you don't teach your child to apologize, it's a very how do I say it? It's something that will affect him in his relationships in future, not just marriage, but in his work relationships, every relationship he finds himself.
So we are teaching them by modeling it, not by telling them to say sorry, because
exactly.
we telling them to do it, we do that often, but they don't see us doing it ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
all right.
as a mother, you must show that by apologizing to your son. You must use the magic words on your son or on your daughter. So you're sorry, thank you, please. Those words must come to you so naturally. Don't take your child for granted that he's a child, and so you just shout on him. I mean, he has to see you doing it, so that naturally I do it to my children. So naturally, they also do it to me, because that is what they hear. So we must learn to do that. And one other thing that also makes a man insecure too is when he's always told to be a man. I said this last week, and so he's going through something, and he manages. You know, men are people who internalize things like by their built. You know, so he's managed as a child. He may try to express himself, so he's managed to tell you what he's going through, and you tell him, be a man. Men don't behave like this. Men, you know, when you do that, you prevent your son from expressing himself in future. So something is worrying him. He's living in fear. He's disturbed. He's troubled. But he's been made to think that men don't cry. Men don't express their emotion. You have to be a man. You have to toughen up. Toughen up. So it will live with him for years. And he's with his wife, and things are not going well, but he cannot express himself. He's having a hard time at work, but he will not talk to his wife. He will always bottle it in. And because of that, there will not be harmony in the home because he's dealing with something that he's not being able to express, you know. So allow your sons to express themselves, you know. And when they are expressing yourself, you, the mother, please try to be a good listener. You know what African parents do, doctor? Your son is talking halfway, what's it then? Like, you know, you don't even allow your son to learn. You make the past judgment already. Sometimes just listen to your son. Sometimes all the children want is listening, a listening mother. And so sometimes at JSA, we just listen. We don't even say anything for the first few minutes you're talking. We just listen. And sometimes we'll just tell you, we will get back to you. I mean, we don't want to give you any answer that, you know, will not help the child at that moment. The child is bitter, the child is hurt. So try to listen, because sometimes when you cut short that conversation or that information the child is trying to open up to you, and there are other hidden things that were there, but because you were exclaiming and shouting and, you know, doing all those things, you've cut short whatever he had to tell you. And it can be terrible for children when they see that a parent does not listen. Okay. You know, they get hurt, and you go and talk to the wrong person, you know, and that could also lead to something else. Yes. Okay. And a child must see a parent. Okay. Yes.
Sure.
Can I go ahead with my last point?
Last point. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So a child must see his parent, either a mother or a father, go through pain and be open about it. Okay, what we African parents do is to hide our pain. So your son asks a question and you throw him off. Like, like, you know, you are quick to insult. You are quick to, you know, shut him up because you think that you are the only one who has a problem. Children also go through stress, you know, and today's child is so exposed to stress. They wake up 5 a.m. to go to school. They come back late. You know, children are also going through stress in recent times. We used to close school at 2 o'clock, come and play at home, but my children don't have that luxury anymore. They are also stressed. You are also stressed. So let's find a common ground. You are the older one, so you try to calm down and give your child that few minutes of your time to listen to whatever he has to say, and feel free to tell him, today business wasn't good, or today a client spoke to me in a way I didn't like, you know, but anyway, that's life. Sometimes, and so you try to converse with your child. Sometimes in life, you don't get all your days equal. Some days are good, some days are bad, but God is in control. But to shout at your son, to leave you alone, that wouldn't help at all. Let your child know that you are going through something, and let her know that's something, so that when she also or he also encounters that, he can also deal with it, because he saw mother or father deal with it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I've taken note of that. Dr. Trump, we are being told to allow our boys to be emotional, but we know that one pillar of manhood is also courage. Where lies the balance? And as a father, what are some of the things that you have seen in that? Yeah, you also have had the American experience. So having that experience, what are the toxicities in the parenting that fathers are showing to their sons?
Yes. What I can say is that there is an epidemic, and that epidemic is the epidemic of the absence of fathers in sons' lives. The absence of fathers in sons' life. You see, because boys need to be provided with psychological and physical protection. And these are the things they need and then deserve, because a child for example, when I was bringing up my boys, I did very little, but I showed them a lot of things that they have learned to do. They observed me as I was going about my life. Like, for example, opening the door for their mother when we are going out, and then uh, making sure that mother gets them ready for church and other things, and then knowing their positions at the dining table and so on and so forth. Surprisingly, now that I am an old man and they have their own wives and children, it was very interesting seeing my boys opening cars for their wives, um, putting their children at the right places in the home, supporting their wives as they were working in the kitchen, and so on and so forth. So, like Mrs. Mafu said, children learn through observation and modeling. What is modeled in the house is what children learn from, you see. Otherwise, when boys are raised with chronic loss, that is the loss of a father in the house, it becomes natural for them to internalize incredible fear and perceive themselves as abandoned. When one perceives himself as an abandoned person, it becomes chronic, and then the chronic abandonment becomes a pain. It becomes a pain. And what the children internalized are the following. One, the child has been told psychologically by the absence of the father in the home that he is not important. And this goes to a very long extent to prove to the child that he's useless. Another thing the child learns psychologically is that he has no value. There is no value in him. So parents need to heal this pain of abandonment so that fear and insecurity in children are removed. For example, emotional pain is caused by looking around and not seeing the person that you expect to see. It gives you emotional pain. For example, children learn that it is not okay to make a mistake in their lives, and that worries them. It is not okay to show their feelings, and then they are told that whatever they feel is not true. It is something that they are concocting. And then mothers not knowing what to do in this, tell the boys that you have nothing to cry about. You have nothing to cry about. And it is not okay to have needs. Children are taught to think that they don't have needs. When your father is in the home, you will realize the way he dresses. You will learn the way he talks. You will learn the way he goes about certain things. If he does it negatively, that is when the toxicity comes about. If the father is fighting with mom, if the father is shouting at mom, that is when the children learn to shout and fight with other people. So these are the activities of fathers when they are not present, most importantly. But I dare say that whenever the father is present, children learn something important from him.
Wow, that's very interesting. I like the point about we teaching them that it's not okay to make mistakes, and we actually make them feel that we are perfect as parents. I always think about
Yes.
childhood where a child breaks a glass or a plate, and then parents descend on the child as if they have done something so bad. I believe that when we don't manage our response to all of these things, we are also communicating something to them that it's not okay to make mistakes. For instance, with the point that you raised. So as you said it, that was what came to mind. I want to take these questions in the chat box, and then you
Please,
can.
please, Doc, let me add this.
Sure.
In such toxic environments,
Mhm.
the accomplishments of children are not even acknowledged.
Wow.
A child goes to school and he does well, he comes back home and he shows his report card, and his success is not acknowledged.
So we really
And
have to.
they make them think that it is not
Sorry, finish
acknowledge
it.
the successes of the accomplishments of our children. You see, and it makes it look to the child that it is not okay to have successes. You see, and then when it happens like that, children feel that they cannot live up to the expectations of their parents. You see, though some of the expectations are unrealistic, and then they are forcing them down the throat of children. And one certain I will say, because the other time you raised the issue of orphans and single mothers and teachers and so on and so forth. The problem is that when a child who is not the biological child of home, they are held responsible for the mistakes of other people. They are held responsible for the mistakes or the bad behavior of other people. So they are consistently blamed for the actions and feelings of their parents. You see, so any little thing that happens, because you are not a biological child, they put the blame on you.
Wow. And
And
that's where
then,
the abuse comes in.
yes. And then when parents do not view children as separate beings with distinct boundaries, it's also a problem. When parents expect their children to be extensions of themselves, like Doc, you said earlier on, it is also a problem, you see. And then when parents' own self-esteem is derived through their child's behavior, that is also a big problem.
Wow.
And then when children are treated, when children are treated as peers with no parent-child distinction. So boundaries are very important in raising a child to be an adult.
I'm trying to make that point again. You said children, they validate the identity of their parents or what?
Yes. What I'm saying is that parents' self-esteem is derived through the child's behavior. You see? And then children are treated as peers, with no parent or child distinction. You see? Sometimes too, parents are not willing to take responsibility for their feelings, thoughts, and behaviors, but they expect children to take responsibility for them.
Wow.
So when a time comes and we are talking about anger management, you recognize another type of anger that is called indirect anger. It is turned on the children who haven't done anything wrong.
Wow. I think it's interesting, the point that you made about we not celebrating their successes and all that. At this point, I think that we really have to sit down and look at what is going on in their homes. Are we talking more about their strengths and their successes, or we are hammering on their failures? Because as we were speaking, then I realized that probably the reason why a lot of us are not able to celebrate other people's successes is because of that environment. We are in an environment where we are not celebrated. So we don't learn that it's okay to celebrate others.
Yes.
And that is very, very serious,
Yes.
because a lot of the things that we do, damaging things that we do to each other, is because we see the other person progressing ahead of us and we can't celebrate it. Thank you very much. I think we should take the questions in between now, and then we can go back to
And
our questions.
we can also add that for some boys, the absence of parents, and particularly the absence of fathers, is primarily an abandonment which they view as physical. Parents must provide them with the physical conditions necessary for the boy child to thrive, such as appropriate supervision, adequate provision of nutrition and meals, safety in their environment, or they will perceive the world to be unsafe. People are not to be trusted, and they do not deserve attention and adequate care. And also, children have to be provided with adequate clothing, adequate housing, adequate shelter, adequate warmth for them to be able to thrive very well physically, because it is the physical realm that transfers to the psychological realm. What happens in the physical world is what is transferred to the psychological world.
Thank you.
And this one will also help to prevent physical and sexual abuse.
I like that one. We'll come to that. But Antetel, somebody is asking, how can a single mother compensate for the absence of the father? Okay, we answered that last week. So talk about it briefly so that we can move on. And I think Dr. Trump has talked about it even today. Maybe the person joined a bit late.
A bit late, yes. So if you're a single mother, there's a part that you can play. You are the first woman your boy will meet, and so you must project yourself as a very responsible, disciplined, hardworking woman, so that your son can appreciate women. When he sees women with those traits, he knows, yes, this is a woman. My mother was an epitome of what a woman should be. My mother was a virtuous woman. So you, the mother, must be loving, you must be disciplined, you must be hardworking. Let him see those strong virtues in a woman, so that he can appreciate and love and respect other women. Don't take yourself for granted. Don't expose yourself too much to your son. There are women who dress half naked in front of their sons. They take certain things for granted, and that's what also causes the abuse, because a mother, a boy would touch the mother in some unpleasant places, and the mother wouldn't see anything wrong with it. A mother wouldn't talk about it. A boy will witness the mother dressing up. All those things are not very good for a boy child growing up. Once your boy is about 1 or 2 years old, I mean, you bathing with your child, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, So he learns to touch you in some places. And if you, the mother, don't, nip it in the bud, he will continue touching people in unpleasant places, in school, at work, and, So you must know your barriers as a single mother. The fact that your husband is not around doesn't mean that you got this mini man to be your husband. So you call him all sorts of pet names, and so he doesn't see himself as a son at a point, So, but you must try to create that barrier. And number 2, find a mentor, or in your brother. Your mentor can be either your brother, your pastor, somebody you trust with very good values, great values that you would like your son to learn, and let that man check on your son often, talk to him once in a while. That man can take your son out, or during holidays, your son can just go and hang around that man a little bit, and you have that masculine figure in his life, so that he can have a total and a balanced childhood and adulthood, if I must say. Yes. So try to get him a mentor. Thank you.
Yes. So that's what the fostering came in last week. That we need to think about fostering, not even at an individual level, but even as a nation. What are we doing for orphans who are males, and in fact females as well? What are we doing for all these people? Are we just leaving them? Thank you very much, Auntie Ethel. There are doctors on the platform, so I think they will help me answer this. How can one help a child of 10 years who is still bedwetting at night? Is it all psychological? I'd like one of the doctors to kindly volunteer to answer that question. And then, Dr. Trump, speak briefly on this. Somebody's asking, are adolescents not too young to have identity crisis, especially considering the definition of identity being given? Adolescents, are they not too young?
Adolescents are not too young to be able to create their identity. Because, you see, we were saying that
Dr. Trump, the question is not, sorry, the question is not about creating, it's about having a crisis. Can they have a crisis
having
at
a
that
crisis.
age?
Oh yes, if they are not able to inculcate in themselves. In fact, I was coming to the crisis, but I was trying to take it from the point of when identity is formed. When identity is formed, and if it is formed at the appropriate age, the child will not have a crisis. And it is at age 17 to 21 that the identity formation comes about. If the child has been groomed very well from the earlier stages, it will be very difficult for him to get crisis in identity. So adolescents are not too young to have an identity crisis. Because if everything is going on in the positive side, you know, when we were talking about the stages, we said that when it goes on successfully, there is a psychological experience that the child gains. If it goes negative too, there is another psychological experience. If it goes well, if he has gone well through all the stages to a certain point in time, when it comes to forming an identity, making friends that will trust him, that will find him loyal, he would not have identity crisis. I have someone right now coming to me. He's just around 18 years old. 18 years old. During high school, he was able to be the school prefect. He has gone through a whole lot of things. People trusted, they voted for him to be the class captain and so on and so forth. It means people love him and see him as somebody of good rapport. So he has created a specific identity for himself. He has good moral values. His way of life is very good. So he has created an identity. And where did he get this identity? He got it from his parents. If he hadn't been given this identity positively, that is when he gets crisis. So it doesn't matter how old a child is, if he is in the age bracket of 17 to 21 years.
Okay. Then there's another question. It says, with the point that you are raising now, would you rather a child lives without a father who has negative behaviors that the son might pick up, or he lives with the father amidst the negative behavior and all, just so that the child does not grow without a father figure? I think I can weigh in a bit on this. We are not doing well as a country because elsewhere there were social welfare structures that protect children, so that if a father has negative behaviors, they will get to know, the child will go to school, they'll carry the children to talk, they'll find out a way of fishing the information from them, and they will come to your home and sort you out as a father. So here's an environment where we don't have this kind of protection for children. Dr. Trump, we say that children must live with their parents by all means. So what do we do in that situation? The father has negative behaviors.
Yes. I'm only going to re-echo your answer. You see, there should be a policy where our Department of Social Services will be strengthened. If it is strengthened, these behaviors will be acknowledged in school. anything a child is portraying in school, it is seen as being learned at home, because the home is the primary environment and the school is an extension of what happens in their house. You see, so there are guidance and counseling officers in all schools who will be able to see that there is a toxicity in the behavior of somebody, and that they will recognize that all is not well at school.
Is it working in Ghana?
At home.
Is
example,
that working in Ghana?
It is not working here. It's not, because even when you offer free guidance and counseling for children, parents do not bring their children. And guidance and counseling officers have been trained in the university. They go back to their schools to do their work, and their work is given to somebody like a domestic baser. So the guidance and counseling officers are sent to the classroom to teach. But the policy does not appropriately understand that their role is far more important than just being in the classroom, because they have to identify certain behaviors that impede the child's learning abilities. For example, if you said you have a father of a bad behavior and the child is learning bad behavior in the home, it can easily be seen by a psychologist. It can even be recognized by a guidance and counseling officer. And then the child can be taken from the father and then placed in a home that he will be fostered appropriately.
Okay.
But like you are saying, it is not working in Ghana here.
Well, thankfully, we have the Metro Director, Ghana Education Service, Sekenita Kwadi Metropolis, on this platform. And so, Reverend Minister Koko, I'll be inviting you to speak on this issue. What are guidance and counseling coordinators or teachers in the schools doing? Are they being equipped, or is the way being facilitated so they can pick up children who are in toxic environments? What is happening? What is wrong? Why is it not working? So remember, Mr. Koko, I'll come back to you. Let me take this question, and then we'll take two more questions. And Teta has to leave shortly. I think our time is also fast spent. But we have two very...
sorry, the one with the bedwetting problem has not been answered though. Yes.
All right.
But I had a small suggestion. My daughter had that. So
Okay.
I had to learn how to be strict on her water intake. I cut off drinking water and liquids at a certain time of the evening. So I was advised that by 5:30 she should stop taking in liquids and stuff. So it helped, you know. So that's what I can share with a mother who is struggling with that, you know.
Okay, so what I'll say is that such a child should be taken to the hospital for proper assessment. Okay, it could be medical. We have two very interesting questions that I want you both to think about. That first, is it true that some men who have sexual disorientation issues were actually raised to be mean and tough, and so they choose to reject being men? And then, can you also tell us the effect of corporal punishment on boys, and what other less harmful ways we can discipline our children? These are questions that I want you to take one each. But then somebody is asking a question about the parent's self-esteem and the child's identity, because you're saying that charity begins at home. So definitely, if a child is misbehaving, they probably learned it from their parents. So how does their self-esteem depend on the child's behavior? The person is saying that, can you please establish the difference between a parent's reputation and their self-esteem? Because every parent, I believe, wants to see their child behaving well. Dr. Trump.
Yeah. What is the question?
Can you establish the difference between the parent's
about
reputation,
the difference between reputation
and self-esteem? Because if a child goes out and is misbehaving, you're not happy about it, doesn't necessarily mean that your self-esteem is based on that behavior.
Oh yes, to a very large extent. You see, self-esteem is about the person and how he's seen by other people. So if your child is portraying a bad behavior, it tells on your self-esteem. It tells on your how people view you as a responsible parent, as a person of good repute. But self-esteem is more psychological than physical, which is the physical meaning reputation. But the psychological is about your self-esteem, how people view how you go about activities in your office, in your home, in your church, and so on and so forth. Your self-esteem would make you not be very, very comfortable with yourself. You will see yourself that you have failed. In a reputation, you will not be the only person who will see that you have failed, but society, the larger society, will see that this child's behavior is telling on the mother's reputation. But self-esteem, the mother herself will see that she has failed her child. That is why the child is having that bad behavior. So it is like a growth from the self-esteem to bring it outside to turn into a reputation. This woman has a reputation of not being able to train children very well, but self-esteem is different. It's different because how you see yourself is your self-esteem.
Okay, thank you very much. So, uh, somebody's asking that is it too late to teach your child who is 16 and 18 emotional intelligence? I think I'll answer that quickly. Last week we talked about it. I'll encourage you to go see part 1 in our YouTube channel. The channel is All for Jesus. Okay, we said that we have to model empathy and we have to model unconditional positive regard. All right, and you have to love your child unconditionally. So empathy means putting yourself in other people's shoes, respecting them, the kind of thing that you say. For instance, if they come from a poor family, how do you relate with them? Your child is learning all these things. That's teaching your child emotional intelligence. We talked about unconditional positive regard, and that I think last week we glossed over that, but that has to do with making excuses for people. Okay, not being in a hurry to judge people. For instance, you call somebody, the person doesn't pick it, then you conclude that they don't want to pick my call, but you don't think about the fact that the person may have been in a meeting or uh, just couldn't pick it up. You just judge. You don't regard the person positively. And when we are doing these things, our children are learning from us, and we are saying that boys need their emotions. They have to be in touch with their emotions. So we have to be careful what we are modeling around them. Oh yes, Dr. Genevieve Inseidu is on. She's a member of the Happy Healthy Home team. I think she's put to answer there concerning bedwetting. Let child, oh, why did I even forget that on my team I have a pediatrician? Bedwetting. Let child urinate before bed. Again, set alarms to wake child at set time during night to go to washroom. It does not matter if child passes urine or not, but with time, child learns to wake up to urinate. It demands commitment from parents. Also, there may be medical reasons that may explain the bedwetting, so you have to see a doctor. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Instead. Would have loved you to speak rather, so we see your face. All the same, we are grateful. So quickly, Ancheto, the 2 questions that I asked, which of them are you comfortable with talking about?
The corporal punishment question.
Okay.
Yes, so last week I spoke about it, and I'll just like to reiterate what I said, that yes, we've been doing corporal punishment in the past. I mean, stroking your child, beating them, and all that. But times have changed. I mean, society, we've evolved. Yes. The Bible says we shouldn't spare the rod. Yes, but when the children are younger, you can scare them with beatings and stuff like that. But you see, after a certain time, the child builds immunity to that kind of punishment. I think what we parents need to be doing more is to dialogue with our children. Try to be calm when something happens. Have a retrospection. Find out what could have caused. Why did my child go and kiss another child? I mean, why did it? Is it that I leave the TV on without any controls? You, the parents, must investigate, must find out whether you have a part to play, because a child is a product of his environment. So don't be fast or don't be quick to punish your child. Find out what you might have contributed to it. Number two, punishments must be reformative. Children must learn something, out of a punishment you're giving them. It also behoves on a parent to even explain why you are punishing them. Not you don't just punish for punishing sake. No, you have to call your child, explain to her why I'm punishing you, so that that's why I tell my girls, so that you not embarrass me in future, so that people will know that I did my best. I trained you up well, so I'm punishing you today so you don't repeat this. And sometimes you can give punishments to your children in a form of house chores. A place has been dirty for a while in the house. Let her clean it, so that by the time she finishes cleaning that place, she will have acquired a skill of cleaning and cleaning well. Let your child read a pile of books that has been stuck in the bookshelf for a long time. By the time she finishes reading those books, to her it's punishment, but you would have exposed your child to so much, and she'll thank you later. There'll be some vocabulary and some diction she will use in future, and it's credit to you. It was a punishment then, but you helped her, So think creatively, of punishments that your child will feel pain doing it, but it will not emotions, but it will teach her something for life.
Well, that's interesting, because when our children misbehave, the first question we actually need to ask is, what does the child need? Because children don't just misbehave, they need something. But when you are not asking, the first thing intuitively is, what can I do to my child to make my child stop that thing? And so we don't, like you're saying, we are not even explaining to the child why we are even punishing the child. Because the first thing we want to do is to descend on the child and stop that behavior. But the question is, why is this child doing what they do? And what do they need? Thank you very much. But you mentioned something very interesting. For instance, Dr. Trump, so my child goes to school, my boy goes to school, and then I get a report that my child went to kiss a girl in the school. What is it in the upbringing that will what will prevent our children from getting involved in domestic violence and sexual abuse? What is it in how can we help? What can we do humanly possible? Or what are we not doing right?
Yes. You see, Auntie Ethel has said something earlier on, and it holds. You see, the way you portray yourself in the home, a parent portrays himself or herself in the home, is what a child will learn from. If a child goes to school and is kissing somebody in the school, it is as a result of him seeing mom and dad kissing. If that is appropriate for mom and dad to kiss in the living room when the kids are there, then that's what we are teaching the children, you see. And then some parents also do certain things in the presence of their children that will let the children analyze and think about it and then come out with ideas of having sex with another person. But with sexual abuse, it is a matter of, it is a disease. Sexual abuse is a disease. In America, sexual abuse would be a stain on your record for the rest of your life. If you abuse a child sexually, it is on your record. And they will not allow you to live within the proximity of 1 mile within a school because you may sexually abuse somebody.
Wow.
So, like I continued and said that the home is the primary environment for a child. So these things happen in the home and the child learns. But the school is also an extension of this very environment. When he goes to school and teachers are dressing in such ways that children would be enticed to look at them and behave in those lustful attitudes, then we are teaching a child to to be a sexual abuser or partaker of sex. You see, so it is what the child looks at. It is not within them. It is something environmental that they look at in the house. Maybe it's not mom and dad, maybe uncle and auntie, maybe big brother and his girlfriend.
Or TV.
They watch it and they will be on TV, on TV and the rest. Then they will also learn to do the same thing. They will also learn to do the same thing. Okay. I would like to make a point. It's very important because we are about to end. It is back to the psychosocial developmental stages. You remember I stated something about the bedwetting as being the lack of giving the child potty training. You see, if a child is not given potty training, if he does not get proper potty training, this child will bedwet at a time that he should have overcome bedwetting. You understand me? What others are providing us this evening is only interventions. It's interventions. But if you give potty training, the child would not bedwet for you to set alarm and then look at it as a spiritual issue or look at it as a medical issue and so on and so forth.
This one calls for research.
If it's even a medical issue, it will be seen right from the second stage of his development, because it is at the second stage of the development, age 18 months to 3 years, that the child will go through potty training.
Wow.
Because all that we are giving, all that we are talking about is intervention, treatments. Yeah. You see, all these are treatments. But if you potty train them, there will not be the sickness for you to treat them.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got very two interesting.
And it applies. It applies to all the stages as well.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Trump.
No,
yes,
Dr. Gacy.
Yes,
please. I've got some few chats saying that the chores are not the appropriate ways of punishment. You see, it's how you communicate with your child after that. Let me tell you what I did with my daughter. So I realized my child doesn't like reading. So I used reading to get her on track. So she did something and I said, you see those 3 books that your dad bought for you on your birthday that are still on your bed? You're going to read them. So she read them. I called her. I engaged her. So what was the book about? So I was so interested in the book myself. So I read some with her. You know, we learned new words together. It wasn't something that go and read and I left it at that. No, I engaged her afterwards. If it's a chore that you are asking her to do, if she's not been able to do it well, teach her how to do it well in a loving way. I'm not saying that pile chores on your child, pile books on your child, and leave her to it. No, but I engaged my child to read. I read with her. We enjoyed the session together. And at the end, it was fruitful. My child has adopted a lifestyle of reading by herself. So it may not work for everybody, but it's an example I've tried and it's worked for me. Yes.
Yes, I think that it's finding the balance.
Yeah, it is
and not overdoing something.
It is very true. Yes. Yeah, it is very true what Mrs. Marfo has stated. I would also add that giving books to read and so that is an appropriate way of correcting a child. But corporal punishment is severe punity. You are severely punitive. What happens is that when you use a cane on a child, it means you are already angry, and that you are frustrated. That is why you have picked a cane to cane a child, because he is doing something that frustrates you and therefore you are angry. I always say that an angry person is a frustrated person. So when you pick a cane out of your anger and frustration, you may hurt the child and it will not yield any reformative activity. You understand me? So that is what we are trying to talk about here.
All right, I recognize that Mrs. Baffo, you have to leave now. I want to take your take-home message, and then participants will be winding up in the next 10 minutes. So stay with us. I want us to hear from two people, Dr. Linda Vanotu and Reverend Meza Koko. Dr. Vanotu will tell us how she thinks that the church can support the raising of boys to be men, and then Reverend Mr. Koko will tell us how schools can do that, and then she also touch on the guidance and counseling issue. And then, if there are no more questions, we'll wind up. So kindly bear with us. But let's take your take-home message before you leave us.
Okay. So, first of all, Dr. Gazy, I'd like to thank you so much for this opportunity to also share my thoughts on how we can raise boys' rights so that society will advance further. You know, because the total liberation of women and children lies with raising those responsible and quality men in our society who will implement policies together with women to make lives better for the upcoming generation. You know, so if children are taught all these processes, they are given these solid foundations, as Dr. Atram has spoken about, the various milestones, the various stages of children are taken seriously by parents, society would definitely be better for all of us. I wanted to touch on my the school, how schools can contribute. That was my parting message. So if you allow me to share my, so I think that schools must take on the teaching of gender equality in our schools seriously, teach the boys and girls why it's important that we give boys and girls equal opportunities. So schools must learn to encourage leadership of girls so that boys can appreciate girls leading. Okay, we must normalize female leadership in our schools. So it shouldn't always be head prefects being boys. No, a head prefect can be a girl too. In my daughter's school, we spoke about it. So we saw girls also leading sometimes, you know, and also in the KG classes, the lower classes, the KG classes, we find that there's a deficit when it comes to staffing. There's always female teachers. Maybe it's about potty training and all those things that children need to learn from a woman or a mother. So we always find women in those classes. But I think that men should also be seen to be assisting sometimes, you know, in those lower classes so that the boys can learn from the masculine, you know, from childhood. The boys are exposed to females in their homes, more female teachers. We must encourage some men to also teach in those stages of life. They must model for the younger boys to see. It must also be replicated in the schools. So sometimes in certain schools, they can encourage some of the male teachers who are child-friendly, you know, to go and teach some subjects in the very lower classes so that the younger boys can have this interaction with males, you know. So these are some of the things I would like to say. And the last point is parents, there is no formula to parenting. There are even times that you do all that you can, but your child may decide to go a certain way, you know, and sometimes the fact that your child did something bad doesn't mean you're a bad parent. Don't feel like you're a failure when things are not going well. Sometimes a child must feel to turn out great, to make a statement to the world. Sometimes your child needs to set some record through some accident, through a certain failure, for him to even discover himself and his purpose very well. If Jesus were not crucified on the cross, we would not be here. So children come with a certain purpose. And so if the fact my younger brother was expelled from school at a point when we were in secondary school. But today my younger brother is such a great guy, you know. We call him the presidential MC. He's called Jerry Adololo. When they are doing presidential programs and serious corporate programs in the country, Jerry Adololo is the one they call. So, but he was expelled in Maoli school, you know, for following friends. He comes from a pastor's home. My father is a pastor, but he followed friends to go and smoke in the bush in the school. And it was just youthful exuberance. But my father took it calm and took my brother on for 1 year, taught my brother at home for 1 year, you know, brought my brother back to his feet. So please, it isn't because your son is bad that you blame yourself as a parent. No, God has a purpose for every child. And sometimes a purpose may come through failure or some disappointment. And so parents, you're doing your best. And please keep learning. We are so happy to have a platform like this. And God bless you, Dr. Daisy. God bless you, Dr. Akram, and all the great doctors and consultants on this platform. Please, let's keep teaching, and parents, let's keep learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Auntie Ethel. And for those who came in late, I'll be screen sharing some events that she's having for boys. One starts tomorrow. Don't miss out. Her phone number is on. I'll give you the number again. You can call her and find out how your boys can join in every Sunday evening on Zoom. She's going to do some grooming activities with the boys, and she's going to teach them. They are going to do cooking, crafting, learning how to sew, all sorts of things. She's going to teach your young boys. Let your son learn a new skill. Okay, so I'll screen share that one as soon as the host permits me to share my screen. I've tried to get her several times to allow me to share my screen. I think she'll hear me now, and she will do that, and I'll share the advert with her. Next year, she's also going to have the whole of next year. She's going to have a series of events for boys 7 to 17 years. Okay, and you can get your boys to do something new. You know, in Ghana, we are too boring. Nothing is happening. So thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you.
Thank you. I had a point to make. Yes, I think about the schools. I also want to say that fathers should be interested in what is going on in the school. We take our children to school, and mothers have to do everything. Okay, if I say everything, I don't mean paying the school fees, for instance, but fathers to pay the school fees and they'll go to bed. But I think fathers have to show interest. Go to the school, let your boys see that you are there. It's all modeling responsibility for your son. So our last question, Dr. Trump, is it true that children will not like to be men if they are treated to be tough and mean? They'll end up with sexual orientation problems. I'm asking this question even in relation to the question about house chores, because it's true that whenever we push children too far, they tend to hate the thing that we are pushing them in. So if you are giving them house chores, yes, and you're piling on them, they're going to hate doing house chores or reading. And for that matter, if you're also bringing them up to be tough and mean, you're likely going to get them to become one of the LGBTQIXYZ. What is your take on this point?
Yes, you see, it's all about regulation of the child's emotions. Because emotional dysregulation is associated with early psychological trauma. And by saying this, if something traumatic happens to the child in his infancy, the child would internalize it, and then if care is not taken to change this internalization of this trauma, the child will carry it on and will want to be something else. You see, again, maltreatment, such as child abuse, child neglect, or institutional neglect or abuse. When a child is treated negatively, he tends to be aggressive. He tends not to be able to positively regulate his emotions. And then he brings in anger, aggression, confusion, worthlessness, vulnerability, and the rest. You see? So, what I will do is that, Doctor, I'm going to let someone bring you a copy of my book, which talks about this fear. Fear brings about anger. Fear brings about anger. When someone is afraid, it means he has been placed in a situation that he cannot help himself. And the LQDB and the rest people are acting out of fear. They are acting out of fear. And what brings about this fear in this instance is emotional dysregulation. If there is an early psychological trauma, that is, you are there with your daddy and then daddy gets accidents and dies, That is psychological. It will give you a psychological trauma, and you are not allowed to go through the stages of grief. You get psychological trauma. Or you are facing maltreatment among your peers and among your parents and siblings, such as abuse, neglect, or when you go to school, people are bullying you or abusing you. It brings you what we call a reactive attachment disorder. You do not want to attach to the right people. You see, you are reacting to the maltreatment that you've received. So you want to be able to be something else. You are a male, you want to become a female. You are a female, you want to transgenderize yourself. You see? So you cannot pay, because you cannot pay attention to your feelings and your needs. What happens is that by the age of 5 years, the child would have understood their emotional development and they talk about their feelings easily. The mistake here is that as the child is talking about their feelings, parents are not listening. Parents are not listening. So parents must teach their child to regulate their emotions, like reactions to frustration and excitement. Then if something excites your child, try to find out. I'm feeling an excitement in my waist. I'm feeling an excitement in my private part, and so on and so forth. Try as much as possible to listen to the child and be able to react to it. And then you must also try to calm your child down after something exciting or upsetting happens to them. You see, in this way, you are helping the child to regulate their emotions.
I'm happy that you
And
have
you are
touched
helping
on.
them not to see.
Sorry, please finish.
And also not to see themselves as who they are not. You see, a male seeing himself as a female seeing himself as a male.
Wow, so that's the
Again,
effect of
what will happen
maltreatment.
is that,
Mm-hmm.
maltreatment. Sometimes sexual abuse from another male, we are talking about boys now, sexual abuse from another male will compel some men to reject being men. Sexual abuse can also compel some men to reject being men and maintain the role of a female who he has been turned into by that sexual abuse by that man.
Mm.
You see, because you are a male and another male sexually abuses you, then in that case you became a female. So by that act, you reject being a man again. And you want to maintain the role of a female and act on it, you see, because of the abuse. Some men also refuse to physically engage in heterosexual intimacy and engage in pornography and masturbation. Childhood sexual abuse of boys by another male may also lead a man to seek out sexual encounters with men in an unconscious effort to resolve the guilt and shame he feels around the original encounter. So he does this unconsciously, and then he becomes another person altogether.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That is a lot to take in a few hours. But the video will be available sometime this week at our YouTube channel, All for Jesus. I'll encourage you to go back, read, watch the first part, the second part, put everything together, and champion your cause of raising your boy to mature and become a real man. Reverend Mr. Koko, if you are there, will you want to touch on the school bit and Dr. Linda Vanotu? Dr. Vanotu, please, are you in? Okay. Let's talk about the school bit because as our children go to school and we must be interested. You remember Mr. Koko on? Okay. Whilst they come on, somebody has asked a question, and it says, "How do you encourage our boys to be independent? We call them mommy boys, even in their 30s or 40s. Some are still living with their moms, and if they get married, they are still about their mommy. How do we sort of engage them in a way that they'll grow out of this mommy thing?" Or Trump, briefly, so that we can wind up.
Yeah. You see, um, everything boils down to the psychosocial stages of life and what must happen during those days, those times. If a child is not weaned off appropriately, you remember potty training, and if the child learns these things very well, he is learning to be autonomous. He is learning to do things by himself. You see, so if he is trained appropriately, he would be autonomous and independent in doing things for himself, because what he has learned is an observation from mommy and daddy. So through that, if he imbibes the experience successfully, he has learned to be autonomous and independent. But if he does not, in that case, then you are training a child to gain an experience of living with mom and dad the rest of their lives. If you are not well trained, potty trained, and then you are not given the proper training in self-maintenance, you will see that the mommy and daddy's home becomes your comfort zone, and you find it difficult to move out and live an independent life. The Bible tells us at a point you have to leave mommy and daddy and go and pick a wife and live with her and live your life. Psychology is telling you that at your second stage of 18 years to 3 years, you are 18 months to 3 years, you are supposed to learn potty training and self-maintenance. If you do it very well, if you do it successfully, you will be able to live as an independent person.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trump, for your patience and for all that you have given us. I'd like Mr. Kwaku to weigh in on the guidance and counseling, Metro Director for GES, Secondita Kwadi Metropolis. If you're on, tell us what the problem is or what the issues are, that we can also celebrate. Are you on? Okay, I spoke to her a minute ago. She said she was going to speak. I think maybe a network issue. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, you're on. Good.
Doctor, am I on?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That just a few things to add. Honestly, I have learned so much from today, just like I did last week. And I'm really, really grateful to you for this whole setup. Dr. Trump, God bless you. I am looking forward to the time when we can get you to come and talk to our counselors. I'm going to reach Dr. Gazy, and I'm sure that we can get you to come to Takrady to help us. In the first place,
all right.
In a few years ago, GES began this whole reform, and a real concentration came for the guidance and counseling unit of the service. And so now what we have is each school has a counselor, and each school, I mean the basic school and the senior high school, and they are given less periods to teach. So, they can't be there and just do counseling. They have less periods to teach. And they are given offices, especially for senior high school. They are given offices, and they are taken through training, even though we make sure we take teachers who read guidance and counseling. When they come out, they go through training. And so for the directorates, for example, in the Metro Direct, Directorate of Education, we have a guidance and counseling coordinator. For here, we have 10 senior high schools. So we have one coordinator who takes charge of the senior high schools, and then another coordinator who takes charge of the basic schools. And then in each senior high school, there is a guidance and counseling coordinator with offices. In fact, we have met them and we've spoken with them, and it's been very, very encouraging. So previously, yes, it was like Dr. Trump said, we didn't really take particular care, but we began to realize that a lot of these disciplinary issues and whatever that were coming up needed more counseling than anything else. And that is how come GES has now moved into that. So we are very particular about guidance and counseling. And at the headquarters, we have a whole unit for guidance and counseling. So we are being very, very particular now about guidance and counseling. And yes, like you said, sometimes the counselors need to move to the homes. And there have been a few issues that have come up, and there have been wonderful interventions that have helped these children. You know, some of them have been abused by stepfathers and all that. And it's been very, very helpful. But we know there's more room for improvement. So Dr. Trump, honestly, I'm going to give you a lot of trouble. So please get ready for me. I'm sure. So that is that for guidance. Yeah, so that is that for guidance and counseling. Yes, we are being very, very particular about that. Yes. And then with the whatever the schools are doing, as far as the boy child is concerned, I think last week I said something that yes, initially we were concentrating on the girl child, but now we've put them together. And that is what the new curriculum is all about. You know, the new curriculum is quite contemporary and is shifting, bringing in all these little issues. So I think Mrs. Marfo said something where we can get a school where the head prefect is a girl and all that. And that is what the new curriculum is all about. Unfortunately, when we rolled this in, this COVID thing came up. But just give a few years and you'll begin to see real changes in the gender, in the way we handle gender in our schools. And we want the boys and girls to know that what a boy can do, a girl can do, and we can live together, help each other, and be positive influences for each other, so that they grow up and we won't get boys who will be abusive, and even girls who will also be abusive. They'll grow up with, Dr. Trump will say, the right emotional intelligence. Eh? Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much. We are happy to hear that something is in the pipeline and all these things are coming to the table, they're coming to the fore. We will not stop talking about it. We'll hold Ghana Education Service accountable. We will hold Ghana Health Service accountable. We'll hold Social Welfare accountable. Ministry of Gender, Child Protection, we'll hold all of them accountable because our children are precious and we want to see them developing their potentials fully. I'd like to finally ask Dr. Trump, what's your take-home message? We are closing. Just give us your take-home message in 2 sentences, please.
Okay. This is a very wonderful platform. It is situated in a way that will bring about positive change in our children at home, at school, in the church, and elsewhere. And I encourage you to continue using this platform to educate society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So finally, I've been able to share my screen. Thank you to the host. You can call Mrs. Marfo on 0244 605 206. 0244 605 206. It's starting tomorrow. The Junior Shapers Africa, they're holding 12 productive Sunday evenings on Zoom for your son. They're going to teach your son how to cook, how to clean, how to stitch, how to sell, how to do personal branding, soccer for impact, etc., etc. Things that, we won't think of teaching our sons. It's all part of augmenting our efforts. So don't miss out on it. And then next year, she's also holding the Boys to Men Voyage. It's a whole year affair. In the first 4 months of the year, they'll be talking about etiquette for young men, and then from May to August, it'll be they call it a Branty Academy, where they'll be talking about character and chivalry, and then there'll also be the craft mastery in the latter part of the year. 0244-605-206. That is her number. Thank you very much, all. God bless you. Let me quickly share in a closing prayer. You can call it a day. I'd have loved to summarize, but I won't take any more of your time because we've said so much, so much. Kindly pick up the video in the course of the week on our YouTube channel, All for Jesus, and do justice to the cause. So, Father, we thank you for a successful meeting, 2 series you've been with us, giving us stable internet, giving us wisdom, impacted us. We pray that you help us do what is humanly possible to raise our boys into men. Do the rest that we cannot do to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much.
Hello, Nanesi.
Yes, please. Eleonora.
Yes, I want to say hello to Reverend Mrs. Akwaku. For due to baby duties, I'm not able to show my video, but she's been my mentor and a very great mother to me. Mommy,
Wow.
Good evening to you. This is Portia.
I see. I didn't know that. Portia, Eleonora is also a member of the Happy Healthy Home team. And I'd like the other 2 members to also show their faces and speak to us if they're on it. It's a teamwork.
Okay. So now I want to respond to Portia's greeting.
Sure.
So I say, Portia, hello, hi to you.
Hi, Mommy.
How are you doing?
Please, I'm well. Thank you very much.